Welcome to the Rogue Startups Podcast, where two startup founders are sharing lessons learned and pitfalls to avoid in their online businesses. And now, here's Dave and Craig.
All right, welcome to episode 245. Craig, how are you this week?
I'm good, man. It's been a steady week, but slowly getting myself out of the shit and into kind of bigger picture manager level stuff. So yeah, it feels good to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Good.
Yep. How about yourself?
Well, I still feel like I'm juggling flaming cats over here. I had some really productive time this weekend, and we pushed a bunch of things forward for our SMS launch here later this month. I'm feeling like I'm falling behind on my paid acquisition stuff. I'm not getting quite as much feedback and tight integration with my agency as I like. They said, hey, we would get this launched by the end of the month. Today's March 30th. Uh-huh. I still have not seen a single campaign. I'm like, there's no way we're launching. Well, certainly we're not launching on April 1st. I've already put the moratorium on that. Like, that ain't happening. But I haven't seen anything. I don't know. I have not improved any creatives. I've not heard, I've given them what I want, but I've seen nothing. And they're talking about running this stuff here within a week. And I'm like, okay, let's, if that's the case, I should be seeing final stuff now.
Yeah.
But I'm not. So that's a little frustrating. And my content marketing stuff has gone completely to shit.
Well, I'm glad you're laughing.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're able to laugh, or maybe all there is to do is to laugh about it. But not. You and I've been talking off air about this for a few weeks, so I'm sorry to hear that it's not gotten better. And maybe we can kind of dive into things you learn to where if I can and people listening can avoid the same kind of thing happening. I don't know, as much as you're comfortable chatting about that stuff.
Yeah. So, dear God, please don't be me. I can say that where I've been here for the past, oh God, it's almost 6 months at this point, which is really embarrassing. But 6 months, and I've got a handful of articles to show for it, which is not good. So maybe kind of the background on the objective of this and how you approached it and stuff like that may be helpful as we're getting into the story. Yeah. So a little background here. Original thought of all of this came from, my traction retreat, where I was basically setting quarterly rocks and, how am I going to grow Recapture in 2021, late 2020. And I came to the conclusion that content marketing was not shit. And it was my implementation of it previously that was shit. And that there was some definite opportunities in 2021, particularly around some topics that are new. So, when you have a new topic in anything, if you can sort of establish a beachhead of your expertise, then you can definitely get ahead in content marketing. And content marketing has become very much an evergreen strategy. So, yada, 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 I want to do content marketing too, right? So with that said, I had a plan in December 2020, and my plan was basically to have this 4 blog post series. And in that 4 blog post series, I was going to start touting SMS marketing, talk about the landscape of SMS marketing, talk about how SMS marketing can move the needle for your business in 2021. And oh, by the way, Recapture is the expert in SMS marketing. And then package that all up as an ebook, send the ebook as a final thing there. And this plan is very similar to something that Jordan Gall did for Cardhook in 2017. Did very well for him. I feel like this is a similar kind of play here, and I could repeat it in a very similar but not exact way. So with all of that in mind, I went out to hire a content marketer and an ad agency so that I could start working on both of those pieces. And the content marketer guy I got, it seemed, first of all, it was a recommendation of a friend of a friend of a friend, I think. So, maybe there's a pink flag in there somewhere. Unless you have direct experience with somebody, I would say lesson number 1, unless you trust somebody that says they've had direct experience with this person, maybe don't hire that person or try them out on a very tight timeline and then say, this either is put up or shut up, and, make that happen in that time and prove their worth. Mm-hmm. So I didn't do that. That was failure number one.
So just along that line, what kind of time frame did you engage this person on, or kind of scope that kind of got away from you think?
Well, so I first said, I want those 4 blog posts that I talked about. And, that actually started off okay. The first one was good. The second one immediately went off the rails. And, I thought, okay, this is just a misunderstanding. I hadn't made myself clear. So we went back and forth on email. We had various calls. He rewrote it, and I felt like it got closer. And I'm like, okay, great. So then I figured on the 3rd and 4th, it would be smooth sailing. I was absolutely wrong on that one. And so this was over the course of, I hired him in November, and we were working through everything in December, and we got the first 2 done in December. So his original promise to me was, I can do 6 to 10 pieces of content in a month for a set price. And I was like, wow, okay. That's
a ton of content.
That's a ton of content, and content of various sizes. And so my first mistake was I didn't ask him how he was going to do that. And I should have, because later I found out he was outsourcing this stuff. And when he sent me samples of his work, not of his team's work. And he basically was hiring these people on his teams, and they were flaking out on him. And then he wasn't communicating that stuff with me. So just like everything went sideways in December, and I started discovering this like a little bit at a time. He was never upfront with me about any of this. I didn't know he was outsourcing. I didn't know he wasn't the author of these pieces. I didn't know what was delaying him. And, there are some other mitigating factors on this as well, because, I'm trying to be a compassionate human being. Number one, there's the holidays.
There's
number
the
two. Yeah, I mean that, but with that said, there was also, he lived in Texas, and then there was the whole Texas freeze thing, which, but I said, hey, if there's a problem, let me know. And then he came back to me and said, no, we're good. We have power, we have heat, we've got everything. And I'm like, okay,
my blog post then, dude?
Where's my fucking blog posts? Yeah, that was pretty much my thought. And yeah, so I mean, yeah, I did a lot of stuff wrong here because I having done this before with a very reputable firm, and they were delivering things, and they, I knew what everything was up front. I just made all these assumptions that all of the same stuff would be true here, and it wasn't true, and I didn't do my homework. I didn't ask the right questions. I didn't get this stuff set up. So yeah, first 4 articles were already falling apart, right? And so we get into January, and I finally start getting some of this stuff, and he's like, yeah, I'm sorry, I really dropped the ball. I'm totally going to pick it up. We're going to make this happen. So we had another call, and we sat down and said, we're going to deliver all of these things, and we're going to do this stuff, and I'll definitely get this here in the next month. And he didn't charge me. Like I got charged for the first part, and then for the entire month of January, he didn't charge me anything at all. So I was like, all right, well, yes, I got screwed, but hey, I didn't pay for it. So I guess that's okay. Yeah, that was not so great. But yeah, then we got to February, and we're starting to work on the delivery of stuff again. And that's when I got 4 just unbelievably poorly written articles. And this is when it finally became clear that he was outsourcing this stuff, because it was like vernacular that I would not expect a native English speaker to use. And the wording was just awkward. And then, he was telling me, oh, well, no, this person lives in Atlanta, Georgia. Great. Okay. But that doesn't tell me what their English speaking ability is. That's nice that they live in the United States. Congratulations. But yes, the articles were not up to a standard that I believed the first ones were. And this is when I found out he was having somebody else write them. And okay, it's fine if you want to have that business model. I don't have a problem with that business model, but you should disclose that business model to your customers so they understand what's going on. And you should send me writing samples of that person, not of yourself, because that's misrepresenting the work. So my bad for not doing the homework on that one and getting clarity there. But by this point, it's most of the way through February. I've got 3 shitty articles. I've got 4 articles from before that finally got finished, that were finally up to a level that I was ready to accept. But, it took forever to get those things out. And here we are. We barely have 7 pieces of content. 3 months have elapsed. And, 3 of those pieces of content I can't even publish at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, this is not working. So I basically fired him. And, clearly he was not surprised in any way by this.
Yeah.
And that was fine. So I kicked him to the curb. He managed to do some rewrites to get the 3 pieces of content to a reasonable standard. But, at this point, he was supposed to be like creating the blog posts and putting everything up and do the SEO optimization and all of that. And all I got was the content. So I kind of was left holding the bag. But again, I didn't get charged for this, so that was good. So I only ended up paying this guy for 1 month's work, and 3 months of time were wasted. So that was the part that sucked. Yeah. But wait, there's more.
Okay, I have a bunch of questions, but yeah, go for
finish. Wait, no, start with some questions, because it's only going to get more interesting from here on in.
Okay. I guess my questions are around how you organized the work at the beginning. Because just as I think about like starting with somebody, something I've learned is like, as much as I'm able to just hand them a package of, this is exactly what I want, and this is what I expect, and this is the plan, and this is why, and this is our customers, and this is how you deliver the material to me, and all that stuff, all of that is helpful, I find. But don't know kind of how far down that path you got.
I got part of the way down that path, but I was not nearly as specific as what you just said.
Okay.
So like in retrospect, I would definitely do a lot of stuff different. So first of all, I would specify, like, we did talk about deadlines and we did talk about delivery. So first was, he went out and did some keyword research, because I basically said, here's what my audience is. Here's who we're trying to target. Here's what I want to accomplish. Here's the goal. And I want content around that. And then, by the way, we're doing this specific thing on SMS marketing. I want to focus on that too.
Mm-hmm.
So he started doing keyword research around those things. And then he came up with a list of keywords and said, all right, based on what I found, here's the volumes. Here are the keywords I think we should target first. And I looked over the list and I looked at the keywords and I was like, yeah, I agree with that. Let's start with those. So that was the process. But we didn't talk about like delivery standards. We didn't talk about, what the finished product looks like, or the deadlines for the drafts, or any of that sort of stuff. And as I went along, I realized that was a mistake. That was a major mistake, because these were things that the previous agency I worked with just did. They just did all of those things.
Yeah.
And so, again, I made those stupid assumptions, and that killed me. Yeah. So, does that answer your questions and embarrass me a little bit more?
No, just, I certainly don't mean to embarrass you. I've had some.
Oh no, I'm embarrassed for myself. You're not embarrassing me anymore. I already did that. It can't get any worse.
No, that's cool and that's helpful. And I think that, that's why, these productized services or agencies are so good, is they have figured all that out, because demanding customers have asked for this stuff in the past, and they know that they have to deliver it to just be competitive. So yeah, I think that's the part of the case for hiring a specialist or a productized service that has done this before.
Yeah. So based on all of that, I thought, all right, I'm smarter. Smarter Dave is smarter than past Dave. So future Dave is now going to go forward, which is now past Dave, just to be confusing here. But smarter Dave is now going to go out and try to hire a better freelancer to do this. So I started reaching out to people that I saw on Twitter that were recommended by other people that I respected.
Okay.
So like, for example, Joanna Wiebe had tweeted out some stuff about some great copywriting people. And so I found that thread and I was like, boom, 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 boom. All right, here's a list of people I'm going to go contact. So I started reaching out to these people, and it was interesting. So, because I was smarter Dave this time, I had better questions to ask. And I had a very strong sense of what I wanted. And, like, for example, one of my questions was, are you the person writing this content?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sending me samples of something that you have done yourself and that I will see if I hire you? And I got reasonable answers to those questions. It doesn't mean that I would have had a reasonable experience, but I got reasonable answers to those questions. So I felt like, all right, I did my due diligence there. And when I was going through some of this, I even found somebody who got recommended, but didn't have any experience in the field yet. And I was specifically looking for experience. So I basically was able to, push them aside and say, that's not a fit for what I'm looking for. I want somebody who's done this before. So that was good. That was also good. I felt like I was doing a much better job of screening. And I came down and I found a couple of people that seemed to be a pretty good fit. One of them I felt like was a strong communicator. And, given where I was at with my last freelancer, where the communication was just unbelievably shitty, I was, of course, very enamored by all of this. And she seemed to really know her stuff. And she had some very strong thoughts and opinions about SEO and things that she would do. And I showed her the pieces of unfinished content, we'll call them pseudo-finished content. And I said, how much is it going to cost me to get these things SEO optimized and published? And I didn't think that their current state was so horrible that it needed to be like completely rewritten, but her prices were pretty expensive. And then on top of all that, she was almost charging me like half to 3/4 of her normal from scratch article price to do that part. And I was kind of like, what? And that's where I like, all of a sudden, freaked out Dave came out and said, this seems a little weird. I was okay with her otherwise up to that point. And then I found somebody else who seemed to be, who wasn't quite as expensive as she was, but still seemed to be a pretty good communicator and had good experience. And her samples seemed to be okay, but something felt off on all of this. So then I reached out to the content marketing king, Ruben Gomez. And, I told him what had happened, and I showed him the samples, and I showed him the sites of these freelancers here, and I told him their prices. And that's when he started laughing at me. And I'm like, oh, shit. Smarter Dave was not smartest Dave. Smarter Dave did not win the day. So, yeah, that's when he sort of looked at my stuff, and he looked at their stuff and looked at my price, what the price they had quoted me. And he's like, they are overpriced. They're really expensive for what you're getting. And what it looks like some of the SEO techniques that they're doing are out of date. And basically this stuff worked 2 years ago, but it's, has mixed stuff now. So he's like, yeah, I wouldn't hire either of them.
It's rough, man.
And I'm like, okay, all right, done.
Retreat.
And he gave me the name of, he gave me the name of 3 agencies, and I'm in the process of reaching out to them now. I don't know if they're going to balk at my budget because, I don't have $10K a month to spend on content.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they'll be like, ha, ha, ha. Yeah, we take pity on you and we'll do this little thing for you. But, I really don't know exactly how that's going to go. But he said that if he was doing this is who he would have them do it for him. So, yeah, I'm I'm a little bit demoralized by the whole content marketing thing here. I thought I'd be farther along now, and I'm not.
So, I mean, if you are able to talk about like what your budget is, just because I think it might be helpful, like I think that might be interesting. And like maybe I could talk about what I would expect to pay for like the volume of work that you're looking to do. I don't know if that would be helpful or possible from your perspective.
So I'm looking to spend about $3K a month. So not insignificant.
For like a handful of articles and then packaging it up as an ebook?
No. So it's 3 to 4 articles a month, just blog posts.
Okay.
As large as I can get them. I would prefer them to be 1,500 words or more, but I'll take something as low as 1,200.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understood, these are not unreasonable expectations in there. Certainly the freelancers were quoting me, I could get something of that caliber that was a full blog post with graphics and, formatting and SEO optimization for that price. So I don't know. What's your experience on that? And is my budget high? Is my budget low? Is it average? Are my expectations just completely out of line? I mean, Ruben had some thoughts on that, but
yeah, I would love to hear kind of what Ruben thought, because I know he knows a lot more about this than I do. But my experience is that your budget is probably quite high, for like the essentials, and I think that's the caveat of all this is like there is content that is really next level stuff, and that is, I think, not what you need. Like, you need good content to start ranking for this stuff and just getting stuff out there. Maybe you go and rewrite that in 6 months once these articles start ranking. But for me, I would want, like, to go pretty blue collar with this and say, like, I need a blog post every week, and I need the first one on Friday, of this week, and we're recording on Tuesday, and just say, like, let's go. This is the keyword. Here's 3 examples of similar articles. I need, mash those all together and make a better one. And for that, I wouldn't pay more than $300.
For how many words?
For 1,500 words.
For 1,500 words.
But I mean, if
you've got people that are doing that, are they available?
Yeah, I mean, and there are, I think there are a lot of people available that can write good content for $300 an article, especially if you're doing the hard work of saying, this is the keyword. Here are 3 examples of articles I like. This is the person that we're going after and where they are in the buying journey. If you spend 10 minutes to put all that shit into a Google Doc for them and even outline, like, I think this is generally the outline of what the article should be after looking at those examples of things that are ranking on the first page in Google. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that Denise did for us when she was here, and that was really super helpful, is just to get our writer, 2 more steps down the road towards what we're looking for. Yeah, I mean, because you're talking about, like, for $300, you're paying somebody, say you're paying them $25 an hour. I don't know, I can't do the math on that. That's a lot. That's a lot of hours to write an article,
Yeah, 12 hours, right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't look for this person on Upwork because I think there's just a lot of overpriced people there. I would look at like ProBlogger. Their job board is where I've hired some writers before. And there's got to be some like e-commerce specific marketing sites out there or people that you could tap into. But yeah, I mean, that would be my goal, is to spend $300 an article. And so you're talking about $1,200 a month or something.
Right. Yeah. The freelancers I was looking at were anywhere from 2 to 3 times that.
And maybe I'm stupid and I don't have any idea what I'm doing.
But does that also include the actual the graphics and the formatting and the SEO optimization to post it on WordPress, or is that just literally writing the blog article itself?
So I think this is like, for me, this is like dusted and delivered, right? Like, for me to give you a spreadsheet of the 4 articles I want this month to them going out every Tuesday. I think that for me right now, at least, only comes from the fact that I've been working with the same person for like 3 years. And so they kind of say, and I think Brian Castle talks about this too, is like, I'm not paying you as much as you might be able to get on a market rate, but I'm super easy to work with. I give you freedom to basically kind of do what you want within the confines of what our goals are. And because the work is so predictable, I can pay you a little less than you might get on the open market, where there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of asshole, clients to deal with. So I think you can definitely get to that, once you find the right person and say, okay, hey, look, if I commit to you that, we'll engage on a 3-month basis at least, that you'll have this work coming in, if you can kind of pick up the adding the images, doing the SEO, and posting it to WordPress. Because I mean, honestly, that stuff takes 15 minutes, right? Like, that should not be a deal breaker for a good, content person.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess
charge you a lot extra, right?
Yeah, I guess I went into this with the mindset of content is so pedestrian these days that you have to do stuff to stand out. So in order to stand out, I thought for me that was going to be hiring higher caliber writers that wrote, more engaging articles. Like, I specifically looked at one woman who is kind of like Leanna Patch, who's well known in our circles. And she does a lot of humor in her articles. And so, she can make it as fun or as not fun as you want. But, she was also incredibly expensive. And she also requested a 6-month commitment. And I was like, yeah, I don't even know if this is going to work. You've given me one sample. It's not exactly what I was looking at. And it didn't have the fun part of it in it. It was still pretty dry. It was on it was on Shopify. So I knew that her writing quality was definitely up there. But at the same time, I'm like, I can't commit to 6 months of this if it's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and, unfortunately, I won't know it's going to work right away. And, maybe we don't work well together. And now I got 5 more months I have to suffer through this. I don't want to deal with that. So, yeah, I was just a little gun shy there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, my impression of writers is a bit like some developers and designers maybe. Is there some people that just want to be really fucking expensive, right? Just because they can be. And they are not 10 times better than the person that's, $300 an article. Maybe they're 50% better. Maybe they're twice as good. But again, do you need a 10 times better person in a twice as good article? Or do you need to just get these 10 blog posts out to start getting that footprint in the market?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and you're probably right. I mean, my footprint right now is nothing. So starting to rank for something would be better than nothing. And then optimizing it later with a better writer. I hadn't really thought about that strategy, but that seems like it might make some sense. But you're not doing that, are you? You're not going back and rewriting those articles later, are you?
All the time. Yeah. Yep.
Really?
We do it all the time. Yeah. I mean, so the guy that kind of runs our content now, Dennis, he, in a quarter, which we kind of work in quarters, he probably spends about a third of his time updating old pieces. That's an estimate, but yeah.
But obviously you only do that on the ones that are ranking at that point, the ones that are getting views, the ones that are getting traction, and then you update and deal with them more deeply. Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, a few other data points. We have about 150 blog posts on the site at this point, and the only ones we go back to update are ones that are ranking on the second or third page and have high buyer intent. So it's not the 10 great true crime podcasts, right? I mean, we do but that's not the first one we do, but we do the ones that if somebody's looking for this thing, they are hot to trot to become a customer. And we have the opportunity to go from the second or third page to the first page where this will start converting more customers.
Gotcha.
So that's prime time for this. This deserves our resources instead of creating a new piece, taking this old piece that has some footprint already and improving it.
But having those 150 pieces of content is a prerequisite for that.
Yeah. Yep.
And what are you using to monitor the keyword rankings? Because that's a lot of monitoring.
Ahrefs.
Ahrefs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So you have a paid account for that, obviously, because you don't get that with a free. So
yeah. Yep. Yeah, we pay $100 a month, which is a lot, but it's a lot for me when I don't look at it very often. But we're hiring another marketing person, and when Denise was here, they were in it all the time. So yeah, I mean, it's an extremely powerful tool. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I clearly have a different strategy to be executing at this point. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to still continue with the agencies here and see what we've got, but maybe go the cheaper route here. So
yeah, I mean, I would just say that for me, the trade-off, because we're working with a development agency right now on a particular thing. And the thing with the thing with an agency is you pay more for sure, but all of the bullshit is taken care of. All of the strategy, all of how they communicate with you, all of the planning is on them, and that's what you pay for is the ramp up and the convenience. And then I would always want to bring that in-house whenever I can afford, the time and the energy and decreased productivity and output of, it just being done to me figuring out all that stuff and hiring another person and having a system and reporting and all that crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of universal to any kind of agency versus hiring it directly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if you're if your $300 an article writer is up for some work and they like e-commerce, we might have a conversation after this.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to hear like from folks who are listening, like where they hire writers. Brian Castle, talking to you. Where do you hire writers for Audience Ops? I think that I know just talking to other people, just generally, that like we work remotely has been a really, really great place to hire writers. And with COVID and the increased kind of competition that we're all facing with everybody being remote right now, although I read recently that like a bunch of companies are going back in-house in the next couple of months. Maybe this will get better, but with everybody being remote or being able to be remote, probably especially for these kind of like marketing roles, that the competition is super high. Like it's just hard to hire people these days.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I would, chat with those agencies because it would, your ramp up time would be really quick, but I would definitely kind of see like just post a job posting for this on a few boards. They're like, whatever, some are $100 maybe. And just take a shot with a few people. Give, like, if you have all these articles researched, give a different one to each of the writers that you want to trial. One of them will work and then you can publish it. And if the other ones don't, then go back to the one that worked.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at this point, I feel like I do need to run multiples in parallel because the risk of going down the path and finding that somebody is not the right fit is high. I mean, I've already seen it and it's high enough that I don't want to be bitten by it again. So that makes a lot of sense. And at that price, I feel like I could afford to experiment if this is my budget. So
yeah, totally. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, what do you think out there? Send us an email, podcast@roguestartups.com. Tell us what you think about content marketing strategies. Am I high as a kite? Could I be doing this a better way? Should I be doing it some way entirely different? Let us know. And if you have a minute, our one ask is, if this was valuable to you, please share it with a friend. And we would love to hear from you. Until next week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Rogue Startups. If you haven't already, head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for the show. For show notes from each episode and a few extra resources to help you along your journey, head over to roguestartups.com to learn more.